We're here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, joined today by Iowa 1st District Congresswoman Ashley Hinson. Congresswoman Hinson, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
So what we're talking about today is a new push that you're putting through to help strengthen the biofuel sales and get some waivers and stuff installed. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with that.
Right. Well, plain and simple, we don't need Russian energy. We don't need Iranian energy. We don't need Venezuelan energy when we have Iowa energy through biofuels. And so we've been pushing the administration because of the increased price for gas and fuel to look at RVP waivers as an option to be able to get more ethanol blends into the hands of consumers, into their tanks, and help provide more stability at the pump. So that's one thing we've been asking for. But just in general, we've been saying, hey, biofuels are a great answer to the energy affordability crisis that we have right now. This is about making sure that our energy affordability is directly tied to energy stability and energy independence. All of these things, I think, work together, and that's exactly what we're calling for, because it's about bringing down the cost at the pump. It's about bolstering our domestic supply. It's about reducing emissions too. That is a part of this conversation, and so that's exactly what we have been advocating for.
So my question is, and maybe you got to feel the pulse on this here in Washington. The president and the administration, campaigned when they were trying to get Iowa votes that they were going to, do right by the biofuels industry. And the fact of the matter is, we feel like they've just really purposely let us out. I mean, talking Secretary Buttigieg on MSNBC saying that Iranian oil imports were on the table, but yet they don't want to talk about biofuels because they don't fit the electric vehicle future. So I'm trying to figure out which one's better and where they think one is better than the other there.
Right. And I think where we're all confused is, you're right. The president came to Iowa. All these members of his cabinet came to Iowa and said, hey, we want to support biofuels. Say one thing, do another. And I think there's an unhealthy obsession with electric vehicles from this administration. The amount of money they're trying to throw at the direction that they have chosen, it's not the direction consumers have chosen. Consumers want their combustion engines right now. And that doesn't mean we can't have a conversation about how to make everything better. Again, reduce those emissions, be better stewards. But right now, that demand isn't there. I think we've got over 4 million vehicles registered in the state of Iowa right now, and only about 6,000 of them are electric vehicles. So consumer demand just isn't there. And this is, again, a ready solution right now. Most vehicles out on the road today can handle E15 fuel. I drive a flex fuel minivan, so I go with the E85. And it was interesting, just a few weeks ago, I filled up my tank and it was 80 cents cheaper a gallon. 80 cents. I mean, that's a significant amount of money when you're a mom trying to fill your grocery cart and your minivan at the same time.
And despite what the administration has been saying, I mean, usually biofuels have been a pretty bipartisan issue. What is the pulse in the House of Representatives as you talk about your initiative here?
Right. Well, it's certainly a bipartisan effort here because, you look around the Midwest, and biofuels is a bipartisan issue. We have the Biofuels Caucus. I've introduced a number of bills with colleagues from across the aisle. Defend the Blend is a great example. We're working to get that included in another package that's being introduced to, again, stand up for the biofuels industry. And again, present the option. Hey, biofuels is a ready option. Let's also make sure the EPA can't come in and retroactively make changes to the blending requirements. This is about stability long-term for not only the biofuels industry, but for the American energy supply as well.
So looking right now at the efforts you're making, what is the timetable? Where are things at now in the process of getting this put forward and hopefully get to the floor?
Yeah. Well, right now we're waiting for a response from the administration. We're talking about what our next step is as an office. How can we continue to put pressure on them? But I think the most important thing is that in Iowa, we're united on this issue. We have a great delegation that's advocating to the White House and to other members of Congress, right? This is a story we have to tell to our colleagues who may not have this ready-made solution right in their backyard. But I think it's a unique opportunity for us as biofuels states to work with states that are traditionally your oil and gas states, because you look at where they're going for energy. Texas, for example, the Permian Basin, a huge energy beacon for our country, and the Midwest, a huge energy beacon for our country. We are working together to make sure we are long-term looking out for the best interests of Americans, the price they're paying at the pump, and what this means for the safety and security of our country as well.
We just saw some stats relatively recently here in the office talking about how California is even seeing a huge surge in the amount of E85 sales and even E15 sales. Obviously, with the speaker being from California, that's got to have, have gotten her attention a little bit, you'd think, on this discussion, wouldn't it?
Yeah, maybe I need to have a pull-aside conversation with Speaker Pelosi, but I can tell you this, that they seem to be focused on other priorities right now, which I can tell you Americans are focused on what they're putting in their tank, what they're putting in their grocery cart, the Main Street businesses that are struggling, the inflation that's very real that we're all feeling, the supply chain issues that we're all feeling. I think the quickest way to help alleviate some of the inflation that we're seeing in this country is to drive down the costs of transportation and transportation for goods. And you look at the cost that shipping is adding to the bottom line of many of our small businesses, many of our trucking companies, and the fuel surcharges that they're having to tack on right now. This is, again, an option where we can drive down those costs, tamper down that inflation a little bit, which would provide relief for everyone.
And I know as much as we want to tout biofuels in Iowa is very proud of that and being the #1 supplier, but as you also mentioned, we have Texas, we have these oil states. Has there been any talk from the administration too as to maybe dipping into some of that reserve that we have to help, bring those prices down a little more?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think dipping into the strategic reserve is the right answer. That is designed for long-term, absolute emergent situations, and we need the all of the above energy approach. If these leases that are already in existence, if they're not being permitted properly, which is what we know is happening, the permits are being held up in many of these cases. That needs to move forward, and that's a problem with this administration right now. The leases exist, but it's a time-consuming and very lengthy process to get through the permitting process. So we need to make sure we're moving forward with that before we dip into our strategic reserves. And again, this is about access across the country to an option that we have ready to go. So let's look to biofuels first. Let's have a bigger conversation about energy independence and how we can make sure we are providing fuel options for Americans without having to be reliant upon Moscow or Iran or Venezuela.
All right. Well, Congresswoman Hinson, I thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us, and hopefully we'll hear some more good news about this in the near future.
Don't worry, we'll keep you posted.
All right. That is Congresswoman Ashley Hinson here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.